Think Tank.
Your dice bag sized podcast.
It is indeed. So last week we started talking a little bit about the concept of fan service. And I kind of wanted to explore that a little bit more this week and kind of go into that a little bit more.
Yeah, I believe when you brought it up last week, it was an idea that you had before the show and forgot entirely about it, and then it hit you again during the show.
Yeah,
So I made sure to remember to remind you this time.
And you did. And we got together earlier and talked a little bit about it.
So what is fan service? Because I think most people have one idea of what it is.
Right. So fan service is when a show, any show, doesn't really matter, usually an established property of some sort, but not always, does something specifically for the fans. So, for example, if you were to take my personal favorite show, Star Trek, then you could have an episode about, an alien landing on this planet or whatever, but then they throw in specifically a Gorn so that you can go, haha, there's a Gorn from the original series. I see it. And that's, fan service. Fan service isn't always bad.
Mm-hmm.
Fan service isn't always a horrible thing, but I do hear a lot of people often say, I don't like fan service, or I don't enjoy fan service. And so I thought I would talk about a few things that, where, we talk about that. What it started this whole thing was last week, the weekend before last show, I went and saw Mandalorian and Grogu, which I thoroughly enjoyed. But they had a few scenes that were absolute fan service. They were just completely wall-to-wall fan service. It was obvious that it was, like they brought in X-Wings and Y-Wings, and they brought in Sigourney Weaver to do a part. So that, it's all of that's just sort of making it so that you have all of these pieces and parts where people are like, I see that point. I see that thing. But there are bad fan services too. When you talk about anime would often have bad fan service too, in that it was usually exploitative of women. And that's a different kind of fan service.
Particular camera angles, focused on certain body parts.
Yeah, specifically looking at aspects of women's bodies that, kind of exploitative. And that's not necessarily a positive fan service. But it was common, especially in the 1990s and early 2000s era of anime, which is funny because I find anime to be markedly more restrictive now that they know that they have an American audience, something that they weren't doing prior as much. You could have topless people in it back in the day, and that was okay. So hello, Brent.
Brent's like, am I in Groundhog Day? Is this the same thing?
Right. No, we're just coming back on it because we didn't spend much time on it last week, and so we figured we'd come back to it again.
Yeah, I think.
What are your thoughts on fan service?
He just said, "Are you not seeing the?"
No, I'm talking to you, Troy.
No. I think that's Brent. Yeah, I'm going to. Britton said what I was going to say. It's all a question of, is it fitting the narrative, or is it distracting from the narrative? Because some people were, and some spoilers here for anyone who hasn't seen the Book of Boba Fett. That actually I won't say who. I'll try to avoid the spoilers. But there is at the end a cameo of a character that I thought was done well, but I heard a lot of people were really unhappy with it and felt it was forced into the plot just for fan service. But I thought it was done well, and that's just where art becomes subjective. Right. I didn't feel like it subtracted from the storytelling. An area where it can subtract from it's where it's bad, and then also where it is inconsistent tone. So High School of the Dead is both one of my favorite zombie franchises and one of my least favorite zombie franchises at the same time. Um, Anything that has to do with the character development and the combat and the zombies and all of the plot that's happening, I think super cool, but that they have to constantly throw in ridiculously sized women's chests, scantily clad women, and jiggle effects that defy gravity is completely pointless and does not belong in the show. Um, and it's a show that has death and violence and gore, but then they're also sexualizing and over focused on these characters. And it's kind of like, why do you want both of these themes so intertwined with each other?
Well, I feel like we could do an entire episode on sexualizing violence.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that same way about Dead or Alive, the game Dead or Alive, which is a fight game between women, typically speaking, and all of them have ridiculous jiggle effects.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite games, Soul Calibur, that's one of the more frustrating things about Soul Calibur is they went from a reasonable game with reasonable characters, and the most recent version of it actually passes my threshold for I'm not actually comfortable necessarily with where they went. And that bothers me. It's one of my favorite games. Soul Calibur is one of my favorite fighting games all the way across the board. I love that game. But I only play female characters, typically speaking, and the female characters have been getting more and more big boobs and jiggle effects. And I don't like that fan service. That's not a fan service I particularly care for.
I had to look up because I couldn't remember which one it was, and I wasn't sure if it was all of them, but I knew for sure one did. Dead or Alive Extreme 3 is the one had a particularly it's known with jiggle physics because the game provides specialized gameplay and photo mode settings that allow users to tune the physics from standard to highly exaggerated. So you can go into the options and set how much jiggle you want, and then it allows you to
attack people with your boobs.
And it allows you to change the camera angle. So if you want to shoot from below the skirt up at the combat stuff, you could. But it is the most extreme version of fan service in that category.
Now, I mean, and don't get me wrong. If that's your thing, then
he's not trying to yuck your yum.
Yeah, I'm not going to yuck your yum on that one. And we can talk about agency and things like that because I actually do not have a problem so long as the females involved know what they're doing, have agency. They're, because women can do whatever they want with their bodies. Like, I'm totally cool with that.
How do you apply that though to something like a video game or
how do you apply that to a video game?
Yeah, I don't think
I think we've had that discussion a couple of times where we talk about aspects of it. For example, like, I don't know. When you talk about characters, I feel like this would be in their genre, in their, what would the character do? Is the way I feel. I'm kind of hedging around it because I'm trying to work around this in my brain. How do you give a character agency?
Mm-hmm.
Typically speaking, my characters are female leads, right? It would not fit for my characters to go into a Dead or Alive video game. That would not be inappropriate because my characters, as they were, would never do that, right? Mm-hmm. But anybody who's read my comic, there is nudity. It's just that it's always non-sexual. It's intentionally non-sexual. It's intentionally not intended to be sexual. And therefore, it wouldn't make sense because Dead or Alive is very sexualized. It's hypersexualized, right? And so it wouldn't fit, even though you would sit there and go, but you've already drawn your characters naked. So wouldn't that be okay? No, it wouldn't. This is an interesting discussion I had when talking about, I was going to put my comic onto Webtoons. And I had written to them ahead of time saying, I've got a small amount of nudity. What do you think about this? Is this okay? And their response was, Generally, we don't allow nudity of any kind because we're a Korean company and we have to follow sort of Korean morals. And I said, okay, fair. And I said, but let's talk about, where are these on this particular thing? And I said, because they were saying, it's pretty straightforward. Don't show nipples and don't show pubic hair. And I'm like, no, wait a minute. Whoa, whoa, whoa. You can sexualize something without doing that. And case in point, I brought up a page of Negima, which is manga, which has a lot of fan service getting back to this, where the girls are in hot springs and oops, they all lost their towels, or oh look, they're all hugging Negima and gee willikers, their boobs are squishing into kind of that kind of stuff. And I'm like, and they don't show the nipples and they don't show anything, it's just whited out, like anytime they're naked they just kind of don't draw that detail, whereas I draw the detail, but then my characters would never do that. That's not something that they would do. The characters never accidentally lose their clothes or anything like that. They're going and taking a bath together. They're, because in my world, we go back to kind of the Japanese onsen. So you get them taking baths together. That's just where they talk about stuff and talk about plots and what's happening in the story.
You're not going
And
to have a volleyball special episode.
I'm not going to have a volleyball special. The question really comes down to which one was which, and it was interesting because Webtoons was like, we'll take yours, but we wouldn't allow Negima. And I was like, that's interesting because Negima, of course, is a mass-produced comic, so it's out there. You can buy it at stores. Not trying necessarily to sell it. Like, it's all right. But anyway, yeah, I mean, so that's a fascinating thing about fan service. This is obviously fan service, but it's hard to explain.
I think in the name it's good too. It's servicing the fans and not the story is where it fails. So if you don't service your story and you overlook things and do it for the fans, then it becomes questionable.
Right.
Cameos. You were mentioning how they stuck Sigourney Weaver in the movie. When you bring other actors in just because they're connected in the same genre, but we don't know what the auditioning process was or the casting director's goals were.
I mean, I don't mean to knock Sigourney Weaver on this one, but I felt really like she wasn't putting out her full. I mean, she felt kind of, I don't want to say she was phoning it in, but it felt like she was phoning it in a little bit.
Well, could be the director's fault too.
I'm totally going to say it's the director's fault because we all know damn well that actor can act. That she's got skill. So, but it felt, I mean, it wasn't bad. It just a little flat, and I was like, oh.
Sure, you should say that when we've been talking about jiggle effects.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Which is a shame because I love Sigourney Weaver to the end of the earth, and I'm so glad to see her in Star Wars.
Yeah,
and she plays
Sigourney Weaver, Alien.
Yeah.
Why did she have to strip down to her underwear?
Right. Exactly. Why? There's a good example of, and in that instance, it feels sad a little bit whenever you think back on it because ingenues are routinely stripped down because they need to make money and they're poor and they gotta somehow put food on the table somewhere along the line. And so routinely the culture has taken women and stripped them down for that very reason. Some actors do not care. Some actors are fine with taking off all of their clothes. They're completely okay with it. And I've even heard some actors say specifically, I don't mind nudity as long as it serves the plot. Which means that it's nice to hear that the actor community is starting to kind of grasp what's going on and get a clue as to kind of what's happening and the feedback coming from there. So I feel kind of like that's
You have somebody playing a xylophone?
Yes.
Okay.
So Um, but that's something that really does make me think a lot on that one. Like Sigourney Weaver had to strip all the way down for Alien because of that. I swear that there is a picture out there of the cryogenic
Hmm.
tubes being opened, and they're topless to boot, like all of them, the men and the women. And in that scene, I would be okay with that. That makes some sense. You know what I mean? Like it, I can't imagine what clothes would be like after, you know, 2 years in cryogenic freeze. I'm pretty sure anything medical, they would not put you in clothes because generally when you go to the hospital, the first thing they do is take your clothes away and put you in one of those little gowns that opens in the back. And there's a reason for it. It's because it makes it easy for them to change your clothes. So that makes a little bit more sense. But then later on, she's in that really skimpy underwear, and that's
Yeah.
fan service.
Supposedly, and I don't have verification of this, just something I found mentioned that Sigourney Weaver wanted the character to be fully nude in order to create a striking contrast between the alien and her. But the studio insisted on underwear to avoid the restrictive rating. But since they're in their underwear when they pull them out of stasis in the beginning, um, well, she didn't strip down to get into the spacesuit. She stripped down to get into cryogenic suspension.
Right.
She just it happened to be she got into the spacesuit because of that.
And again, at that point in time, I feel like that's absolutely legit. You know what I mean? Like, I don't, and this is one of those things. I don't have a problem with nudity on TV or anything like that. The problem that I have is when people are forced to do it when they don't want to. That's
Mhm.
my issue. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have an issue with it as long as, and so if Sigourney Weaver wanted to do that as a complete nude scene, then yay, good job. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't have a problem with that scene at all. It'd be fine. That would make sense and completely logical. Um, my biggest worry is just having grown up in, you know, in the culture of actors with actors and all these. There you go. That's important, man. Brent says he turns the medical
Mhm.
gowns around so that the opening's in the front.
It's easier to tie the knot that way.
Yep. And if you're gonna do it, man, do it. You know. So, but that's the thing. But
Mhm.
fan service is taking a thing and putting it out there for the fans, and that includes people, like putting people out there for the fans. And I'm in general, I guess I could kind of say that I think that maybe making Ingenue strip down is similar to putting Sigourney Weaver in a Star Wars movie. That does sound kind of strange, but you know, we're talking about Sigourney Weaver. Um, keep the sock on, man. That's important.
Mhm.
This is Geek Tank at night, so definitely becoming a Geek Tank at night thing. So anyway, that's my thought on that particular aspect of it. And I get that there's a lot of different, you know, aspects to these things that kind of make you go, oh, okay, I get that, and kind of get, you know, but it's still kind of, I don't know. I'm so passing the ball back to you because I've been talking a lot.
Yeah, so I was just looking up for some examples of other people. Black Magic M66 is one that somebody gives of having a whole lot of unnecessary nudity in it.
Yeah.
Um, which I haven't seen that for years, so I don't remember a ton about it. I do remember it being gory because the robots
It had
don't go back
the
when they kill people.
awesomest one liner that had the worst translation.
Okay.
Um, because it's so funny because that movie has a great example of how writing can change everything. So for those of you who are not familiar with Mario M66 Black Magic, um, it's an anime that came out in the early 90s. And it's from Masamune Shiro, who did uh, Appleseed and did Ghost in the Shell, which is what mostly we see now as Gits. But it was one of his side stories, and it's about an android that is that has escaped, a military android that's shaped like a woman, not but only shaped like a woman. It's obviously not a woman. It's not like it's got boobs or anything like that, but it's shaped female.
Mm-hmm.
And the android is deadly, absolutely deadly. And yep, same with Starship. I was going to hit Starship Troopers here in a minute because that's one of my favorite scenes in
Mm-hmm.
Starship Troopers. But I want to finish this part about M66 because this is an interesting side note. I got my first copy of M66 subtitled, and then later during one of the conventions watched it in a video room dubbed. And there is a scene where at first the M66 droid comes across a couple of hikers and kills them both, and in doing so dismembers them. So they don't show it, but it's extremely, there's obviously the robot is extremely deadly. And in the sub, um that was an 80s movie. In the sub, the line when the police find the bodies is, we have found, well, first of all, the dub, let me go for the dub because I like the subs line better because it changes everything. The dub says, we found the bodies of two hikers and they have been dismembered. But the sub said, we found the bodies of 2 or 3 hikers. And that one little change makes you just realize how badly M66 dismembered the bodies. That you can't tell how many bodies are here. And I was like, oh man. And they changed it from the original script because in Japanese, they use the word gurai, which is about or approximately. So Nijin, Sanjin, gurai. So like we're not sure. It's 2 or 3 about, give or take, people. So they're using the word. So in Japanese, it really is. They're not sure how many people they've picked up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, it's amazing how. And then in the dub, they changed it to 2 hikers so you wouldn't be confused as to who we were talking about, because the scene where they find the hikers happens like 5 or 6 scenes after you see the hikers get killed. So they're trying to do the, oh, you remember the hikers? You know the hikers we're talking about? We're talking about the hikers. Remember those hikers? That's who we're talking, like, because they're just innocent bystanders, so they don't have names or anything like that. It's just that
Mm-hmm.
the M66 was loose in a forest, and so came across hikers, right? But that's one of my big pet peeves because
Mm-hmm.
that was one of the changes that they made between the 2 scripts and aggravated me. Brent's mentioning a few things and actually some scenes that I don't feel are fan service at all, and inspire the
And
new.
I think that's Brent's point
Yeah,
too.
that's
Is that
what
they're not.
he's coming up with. Is that inspired the nudity that I have in my comic is the same way, right? Life Force is a great example of that. The vampire in Life Force never puts on clothes because she's an alien. You know what I mean? Like, why would an alien put on clothes? That makes no sense. So she's an alien, so
Mm-hmm.
she never puts on clothes. Same thing with the Starship Troopers shower scene. That one's one of my favorite scenes of all science fiction because it was absolutely played non-sexual. It was exactly like you would imagine a bunch of hardened soldiers would be like. It's like, you know what? This could be a turn on, but probably isn't because we're all going to go out there and try to get killed in a few minutes. You know what I mean? Like, so everybody's like, let's just hit the showers. And they're all joking around and messing with each other. And that's cool. That's exactly the way I would imagine it would be. So none of that feels like fan service. Species I won't watch because there's too many jump scares. So I couldn't watch it. I got ejected from that movie pretty quickly. Too many jump scares.
Yeah, so the same year, but before Starship Troopers was released, RoboCop was released, and the same director, and he did the same thing because he had a shower scene, locker room scene with the cops.
Yep.
And it was co-ed, and they're all topless, putting on their armor and stuff.
Yep.
Nothing sexual about it at all. It's just
and so neutralized that I forgot about that. And it's probably because I didn't see RoboCop uncut in its original movie form, not on TV until much, much, much later.
You didn't
somehow I missed watching RoboCop in the theaters, and I don't remember how that happened. Like it wasn't banned.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said same year. I was wrong. It was actually 10 years earlier.
Van Hoven.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. He and I think apparently the rumor is that during that shower scene, everybody was nervous, and so he got naked too, just to make them all feel better that they weren't the only ones being naked in there. So the director got naked as well, so they all not feel weird about it. But I would think that would make everybody feel weird. I don't know. That's the rumor. I'm not sure whether that actually happened or not. You get these great stories now about things like that where people are talking about that.
And supposedly there's a fan theory that RoboCop was the prequel to Starship Troopers.
Yeah. Starship Troopers would have made a great Alien 3. I'm sad about Starship Troopers because I actually love that book.
Yeah, it was not like the book. Supposedly they are remaking the movie and staying closer to the book now.
That'd be good.
I don't know. I should see if that's happening.
Right. And a lot of it has to do with American morals, which I have always been aggravated by.
Mm-hmm.
American morals are goofy and strange and odd to me in a lot of ways. Even though I was raised in this culture, obviously, I'm familiar with American morals, but it is still strange to me that that's a thing. Because Brent's bringing up that it's a French director, which is true. And and that brings me back to a pet peeve of mine, which is American morals. Not only are they pervasive, but they're contagious. Like now in Japan, very rarely do people still do people bathe in onsen together. And they definitely do not do co-ed anymore. There's like no way they would ever do co-ed, where it wasn't common in earlier Japan for co-ed, but it did happen. The other thing is that like in Japan, families will bathe together up until a certain age. At some point in time, the kids start feeling creepy about it and stop doing it, but that's been normal forever. Like I know that when I was teaching junior high, my 7th graders would often bathe with their family, but my 9th graders didn't. So somewhere right around 7th, 8th, 9th grade, they stopped bathing with their parents, because that got weird, which totally reasonable.
So yeah, they are definitely doing a reboot of Starship Troopers, not continuing the storyline.
Yeah.
Director and writer Neil Blomkamp, who did District 9 and Chappie, is supposedly going to be writing and directing it. And it's going to be pull more heavily from the original source material than the movie. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with it. Because with today's technology, CGI and stuff, you can make very believable suits. If they would have tried doing those suits back in '97 when they made Starship Troopers, they probably would have looked really goofy.
Yeah. It's funny. Starship Troopers is a sort of coming of age movie in my brain for me. There was like the world where you're living with your parents, and then there was the world where all of us hang out together, sort of thing, in my head. For those of you at home, Troy and I go back quite a ways together as friends. We've known each other since the late 90s as well.
Mm-hmm.
But there's this period of time where I was still living at home, and that, yeah, exactly. I like quacker backgrounds. I know that's not what you meant to say, but I'm going with it. Um,
It's damn
even
ducks.
quicker, but I'm going to go with quacker because I think that's actually kind of funny.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, that's true. And it's silly. It's ridiculous. It's, sometimes this is all just dumb.
Mhm.
And you end up with weird stuff that doesn't need to be weird, you know, and makes things weirder than they need to be. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't need to be this weird.
Mhm.
So, but you know what's not weird though?
I was wondering if you're going to get to it, or if I needed to prep you.
No, no, because I mean, we definitely were going to have to talk about how unweird
Mhm.
Geek Tank is by being sponsored by Kieran Games, Geekway Homes, and your
Your
mom.
mom. Yep. Who I actually saw at the convention were
All of our sponsors.
all of our spot, including ones that had to step away for a while, which is fine. And I also saw someone's mom.
Someone's mom.
Is the mom of a friend of one of my kids I got to meet because um, the one of my kids' friends is huge into going to conventions and gaming and such, and I didn't know they were going to be there, but I'm not surprised that they were. So when I ran into them, I'm like, "Oh, hey!" And they had their mom with them and introduced me to them. So
Their
I
mom,
got to meet their mom.
right?
Um, but yeah, that just this last Saturday, I would almost say it was like a pre game con because the big one I understand is in November. Gamers Giving puts on 1 day conventions, and they apparently been going for about 3 years now at this same location at
Yeah.
the Broomfield Community um,
Center.
Center. The word convention wanted to jump in there. I'm like, no, that's not part of that. So it's, but yeah, the Broomfield Community Center, and they have their big one coming up in November, and it's called, since it's Gamers Giving, they do a Thanksgiving type thing. Add the calendar right here. There it is, November the 7th. So November 7th, it looks like, is when that big one's coming up. And
Right.
the Crocono Club will be there. We were there this time around too, and that's why I was there.
And
And
I may be there just hanging out like they did this time.
yeah, bring some plastic chips and actually play some games.
I could do that. I could be.
As weird as that is.
I like being. I like playing with those plastic chips. As weird as that sounds.
But
So
yeah, if you're interested in learning more about them, they've got a website, gamersgiving.org,
mhm.
and also they're on Facebook if you want to just look those folks up.
Yep, this involves one of
Slap.
our buddies, Destin, and often involves Geekway Homes as well. Nate's part of that kind of culture right there as well.
Mhm.
We were there, and I filmed a little bit of what was just kind of going on in ambience, but my phone's not synchronizing with my world for reasons. Still don't make any sense.
Your computer's being really weird too, apparently.
Always, and I'm getting to the point where I think there's nothing I can do. I'm going to have to build a new machine.
Hmm.
I just don't want to, because it's a pain. It's a pain to have to rebuild everything. It's a pain to have to put everything back together again. It's just a big pain. It's a pain in the butt. I don't want to do it. So it is what it is. So slaps giving.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. And that's a How I Met Your Mother reference right there too. So yeah. It's kind of the funny part is there are things that come up that come from different sitcoms, and I get a kick out of when uh like my child will do stuff that involves that. We picked up the anytime you say the word general or major or anything like that, like, well, this is a general problem, and everybody goes general problem. That's a thing we picked up from How I Met Your Mother, and it's funny because I don't think the kiddo remembers watching How I Met Your Mother at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, I don't know if that's. I don't even think that the kiddo remembers it, but we all do the oh man, this is going to be a major issue, and you know, like you know, it's like it becomes particularly funny. So
Hmm.
we picked that up from that show.
I actually didn't really have an interest in watching that show until I decided I wanted to play a Star Trek character based off of Neil Patrick Harris's character from
Yep,
that series.
from that series.
I couldn't say I was playing Neil Patrick Harris because that'd be a totally different character.
Yeah, you would have been going after a different
Different one, yeah.
demographic. Yeah.
Be the first Starfleet officer whose primary goal was theater and musicals. Not sure why they'd be on a starship.
Yeah, that's true. I always kind of wish we'd come back to that game. I did get into the Traveler um,
The new one.
backer kit,
Does it
and I'm
show up yet?
waiting for. I'm sorry,
Did it show up yet?
not yet. But when it does, I will make sure you can see what's going on. I did get involved in Dark Matter. The Dark Matter kit came down, and um, what else did I have? Because these are all fascinating to me. These are game systems that are really interesting to me. So let me see here. I have a folder that straight. That's its entire job is to be a game thingy. So, oh, and then I got all of Cyberpunk Red, which came up on a Humble bundle, which I thought was kind of cool. So, um, I'm waiting for my external to spin back up. It's getting there. Right. Yeah. So yeah, Dark Matter 5e I've got now, which is kind of interesting. I got in on that one. Dark Matter is a an older, not an older series, but you know, older game that had its own rule system, and then they did a Kickstarter on the the 5e version of it, and it effectively it's semi fantasy, as in there are elves and dwarves, but it's more like Shadowrun in that it's a futuristic and uh, typically has a lot more of the mecha kind of combat stuff. Yep. Yeah, I'm curious what that Dungeon Crawler Carl one is. Let's see how that goes. Yeah, and that's the thing. Traveler should be coming out, they said, about September as well. But I went for the all PDF version. So because of course I'm not trying to accumulate anything else before I know that I'm leaving, you know. So that's sort of, I don't want to accumulate stuff to have to just get rid of it.
Mhm.
So that's a thing. That's interesting. So yeah. Anyway, that's a thought process there.
Mhm. Uh, and you said you caught up on Wednesday too. Finally.
Yep, I caught up on the on Wednesday, and season 2. I'm very entertained by it. I do really love Wednesday all the way across the board. I think that Jenna Ortega is really good at that particular thing, at being Wednesday. But on the same token, boy, I absolutely got to give credit to all of the other actors that are involved in that. Season 2 really explored a lot further with all of the other characters. Pugsley's character was expanded, and we saw a lot more of Morticia um, and come on, the father, Morticia,
Gomez.
Gomez, and Gomez doing more things involved
Mhm.
in that, and I thought that was really cool. So,
Yeah.
also coming in November, of course, will be the Star Trek Magic set, which I find interesting too. So, since I'm in my game folder over here, I see Magic cards in here.
Did they announce? I assume it's going to be 4 different commander sets.
I would assume so at $80 a piece. That's so nice. Thanks.
Did they announce which what the categories of each set's going to be?
No, no.
Oh, okay.
In fact, it was a guess for a lot of this as to what's coming up. The guy at the store was guessing because he assumes it'll be roughly the same layout and style of the Final Fantasy sets. I just want to make sure that I save up enough money to buy all 4 commander decks and all of the card, or at least one box of cards, so that I can sort through them, get the cards that I want, and then whichever ones I don't want, I can either give to you guys or whatever, however wants to go with it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that and really interested in how that will work. So
Yeah, I'm looking to see if they have any more information on it.
yeah,
Next to nothing.
almost nothing. Yeah, I figured.
Oh, they have like some artwork. Yeah, it just says release dates November 13th. Does not say what sets they're going to be. I mean, my guess is if they do it like they have done other stuff like Warhammer and Fallout, they will have 4 pre-constructed commander decks, and then of course the packs.
Right.
And like in Warhammer, they had different of the main factions. So in this, they probably would have the Federation deck and the Klingon deck, probably the Borg deck, maybe, I don't know, because that's one of the big ones, and then Klingons.
Federation. Yeah, I would
Klingons,
assume Federation's going to be white.
Oh, there'll be a mix. It'll be blue, white, and maybe something else.
That's right. Yeah, but it won't be black.
No. Klingon would be black and red.
Klingon
for sure.
Would be black and red. Sort of.
Borg will be black and blue.
Yeah, Borg. Yeah, that'll definitely be a thing.
Because that's what you are after they finish with you.
Yep.
I wonder if they'll have.
Would probably be green and red.
If they go with a Romulan pre-built deck, because I'm not sure if they would go with if they're going to go with 4 very specific factions, or if they'll do like a catch-all thing too.
Right.
Like just all the one-shot thingies. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they do the characters, which ones they choose to make planeswalkers.
Right. I'm slowing down with Dungeon Crawler Carl, the books. And it's starting to bother me a little.
Well, you've already read them all, right?
No.
Oh, okay.
I am 2 from the end.
Okay. But you went back to start from the beginning since you got access to the audiobooks.
Yes and no.
Oh, okay.
I went back and started from the beginning because I was doing work here at the desk. But I never got past book 3 in the audiobooks. And I'm on book like 5 or 6. I can't remember which one I'm at. But 2 from the end. I am not reading the newest book yet. I am 1 from the newest book. So, but I'm finding it not as engaging. I'm having a hard time engaging with it, and that kind of makes me sad. So, there's nothing wrong with that. Just kind of going, oh, okay, well.
I'm just shaking my head at all the different IPs that Magic is getting into.
Yeah, I feel like they're going to get the Lego problem pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the interesting things that happened with Lego was that during the 90s, it had diversified out into all these different IPs. And they had a CEO take over in the late 90s because Lego was actually losing money and they were having problems. And the CEO dropped a whole bunch of those IPs and reset everything. I guess it was the early to mid 2000s. And they changed everything around and everything like that. But they realized that being that diversified did not help. And I'm thinking that Magic's going to find the same problem. I feel like that's going to be the same thing. Magic's going to realize that they are too diversified, and they'll need to
I'm not sure
slim
some
back.
of these IPs they just hit and then move on from. So it's not like they are continuing making more of the same IP. So like
Right, but
Spider
it's
Man was
still
just a set, and they're not doing Spider Man new stuff.
right. But that's all of that still ends up with cards in the system.
Right. I don't think they're going to drop that. I mean, there's nothing to drop because they're not still pumping money into it.
Right. Right. The
Whereas with
biggest thing
Legos,
I'm upset about is that Lego got Star Trek's IP and then only released two sets and then never went back to it. And the
hmm
two sets are ridiculously expensive and only getting more expensive as time goes on, which
hmm
is aggravating the heck out of me. Because I'll never be able to track that one down. You know what I mean? It's going to run itself way into just going to end up being a mess. So I don't. I'm still mad about that.
uh-huh.
So
They are reprinting some of the classic Heroescape stuff. It changed hands to a new company. It had been out of print for a really long time, and all the old stuff is super expensive. Like you were mentioning with the how stuff just gets more expensive once it's not being printed anymore. And they finally are coming back around because there was a Toys R Us exclusive of like four or five, I think five specific little box sets that came with specialized dice
oh, excuse me.
and
Sorry.
and
Sudden sneeze.
and a commander guy. And at Toys R Us, they were like 10, $15 each. And if you're looking for them online now, they're like 100 or more each. So they're really expensive. But it looks like the new company's going to reprint them to make them accessible to new players, which is really cool.
I also saw an interesting thing. I don't know if you've seen it. Somebody has taken Heroescape and made a space game out of it, just like I was doing back in the day.
Is
So
this a
you,
company or a person?
I don't know. It's a Kickstarter. It's coming up on my feed all the time, which I find particularly funny. But yeah, they're doing. I wonder if it'll be on. It won't be on my feed because I'm looking for it. I've noticed that if you're not looking for it, you find it all the time. If you are looking for it, it's you know
Mhm.
it's not available as is typical when I want to see things. But the idea that was fascinating to me. I'm going to see if I can just see it coming up and around here. The idea was really fascinating to me that it did this concept of like all these little pieces, but they were you snap all the hexes together to run your spaceship, and then if you land on the ground, you build the levels up like you would with uh, it was completely flat for space, but
Mhm.
if you were to you know build the levels or whatever it would be for
Um,
ground and stuff like that. Then you had little pieces. They had spaceships that you could fly around, and the spaceships were also 3D. So that was kind of cool. Um,
I'm seeing a system of just not a game system, but just terrain tiles called Lorescape. This,
Lorescape, that's it. Yeah, you found it. Oh yeah, there it is, right there.
yeah, so this is just terrain, but it's like use it for your games. It seems
Right.
like.
Yeah, you use it for
Yeah.
whatever games.
Mhm.
But I thought this is kind of cool because it's
Yeah,
like
because you were spray painting Heroescape tiles black to make star
right.
tiles.
But clearly they've got the same concept going on here. Yeah. So this is but it's kind of cool.
Yeah, so they're talking about using it with like Starfinder, Spelljammer, Traveler, such.
Yeah. I just think it's funny because that's exactly what I was doing.
Yeah,
Spray
it's
painting tiles black.
it's yeah somewhere out there. There's probably a Heroescape player. It's like, oh my god, you were spray painting classic Heroescape tiles. How dare you?
Yeah. Although at the time they weren't Heroescape was still out there.
Yeah, they were like 10 cents a tile,
Yeah.
as opposed to like $4 or $5 a tile now.
Right. Right. Now it's a little horrifying.
Mhm.
So yeah, yeah, these guys, I've thought about this a lot too because that'd be kind of fun. Um, so yeah, that was an interesting thing. Lorescape sounds like fun to me. Oh man,
Yeah, I could see you using that for your Star Trek game.
yeah, they've got like different planets and stuff like that. That's kind of
Mhm.
cool too. Faster, better, and in orbit. I think it's interesting because their big Lorescape thing looks like they've got like planets set up on either side
Mhm.
and then space in between. So it's kind of like a simplified function sort of thing, you know. So like you've got kind of a simplified version of the planet.
Yeah, I just noticed Brent's comment on Legos. I had missed it before, but how it's pricing out kids,
It
and
is priced
I
for
did
kids.
notice that they a couple of years ago, or maybe even sooner than that, that they added a whole new category because it's the they used to have the masterwork sets, which was the jump up from you're collecting as a novice or a kid up to you're an adult with hundreds of dollars you want to dump on stuff. And they've added like a third one that's kind of in between, which is clearly outpriced for kids, but below the price of the really expensive sets. But they still start at like 100 or higher. Um, I think that's what the Star Trek set was. It was in that same category where it's considered that that mid level difficulty and price range set. Um,
It was 300, but yeah, that's why it was out of
Microwaving,
my range.
yeah, but it's yeah, it's interesting how the pricing is going on stuff, and with that, it's maybe kids will start getting into games that they can play repeatedly with just one thing, like Crocono.
Right?
Once you have your board and your pieces, you don't need to keep buying everything. I remember years ago, right on the cusp of when board games were really starting to become noticeable by people who weren't gamers, and the whole thing was becoming the expansions. My brother was complaining about it of like they don't do expand. When I played games, there wasn't expansions. You have the game and you're good. Then you
Right.
get a different game for a different theme or feel or mechanic. Um, but yeah, expansions have gotten crazy with games. Having been at Gamers Giving and trying to sell some of my stuff and seeing other people selling their stuff, our sponsor had like 6 boxes of a game called Joan of Arc, and each box was like a different thing, and they're each box is huge, so you would probably have to take 3 or 4 trips just to carry the thing out of the con to your car with how much stuff was there.
Right.
Um, so gaming has become its own hobby of collecting games but not playing them.
Yeah, I agree. I think that when we talk about like all of the we were there was a discussion also going on about games being uh, agnostic about their system anymore. So when we talk about role playing games specifically on this one, they're building an IP, and then they're putting out a 5e version and a Savage Worlds version and a and then a GURPS version, and they're and it's just the IP running on the background of something else. I find that fascinating as well. Um,
Yeah, it's like, oh, you only want to play Dungeons and Dragons systems? Well, here's
that's
our
fine.
here's
Yeah,
Vampire the Masquerade as a D20
exactly.
system.
But that also means that you end up with like 20 different books,
Mhm.
for your Vampire the Masquerade. So you really like Vampire the Masquerade, but here we've got all the but Bob over here doesn't want to play with doesn't like Savage Worlds, and Tim doesn't, and you end
Mhm.
up, okay, well that's fine. We can still play Vampire the Masquerade, just
Well, play the GURPS system. Yeah, it's fine. They wanted it to people who were like, I only play this game system. They wanted to make sure they hit them.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a game that I'm both surprised and not surprised that it didn't do very well. Called the 8-bit box. Actually, it picked up a couple, and my kid actually liked them. But it's a bunch of core agnostic components, but designed kind of in the theme to look like reusable console game pads. It had dice and cubes, distinct retro inspired themes, and it had some game mechanics in it with like 4 or 5 different games that you could choose from to use the pieces for. But it was mainly just a bunch of raw game pieces for you to build your own game out of. And so it was trying to encourage people to be creative.
Right.
And
That's cool.
It did not do well because people don't want to be creative.
And people don't want to be creative. We want you to do the creative work for us.
Yeah, I didn't buy a game to make my own game.
Right? People, if I wanted to buy my own game, I'd buy my own game.
Mm-hmm.
Or something.
But the probably the best thing about it for most people is, since it is agnostic pieces, if you have a game that uses any colored cubes and such, it's a good source to resupply pieces you've lost.
Fair. So yeah, that's a funny thing. By the way, I found game recordings, so if we ever want those, I found that to be interesting. So
Oh,
from
Dungeons and
recordings,
Dragons?
well, not Dungeons and Dragons, but like Barrier Peak. Well, yeah, some Dungeons and Dragons, Barrier Peaks, Shard Seekers, Fate, when we did that one. So that was cool. We even have apparently a Shard Seekers from 2018 in here. Wow. And then a Fate game from 2015 in here. Wow, there's some games we've done quite a bit of. So yeah.
There you go.
Only telling you because while I was in my game folder looking around, my game folder also had game recordings. Somebody had requested that I compile those because a friend of ours who passed away is in some of these recordings, and it's the only time you'll hear his voice. And so it's nice to have those recordings around. So that's a good thing to have. So yeah, it's interesting to think we played Barrier Peaks 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Without
going into details, depending on if Alex is back to being available or not, I will not be available probably for the next 2 shows. So,
which may mean if Alex is not available, I know you often do playthroughs.
Mm-hmm.
I may or may not do a playthrough. I don't know. Or maybe I might just come on here and do drawing.
Yeah,
it could happen. So I know that I will be running or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Oh no, so Monday of next week I actually will not be working.
You could play one of the game things and pause it and make comments. There are various parts of it.
Yeah, I could. So these game video or game audios that I found. So yeah,
pop in Kerbal and say, "This is how you make a ship that doesn't blow up."
But that's takes away from all the fun.
This is how you make a ship that blows up.
This is how you make a ship that blows up. It's Kerbal.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that. In our work, we have this slide about a roundabout. It's a double roundabout. And they say could be worse, and it has this double roundabout with all these cars going around it and everything like that. And I'm like, this is called the Magic Roundabout. It's in the UK. And I said, it's actually not the Magic Roundabout. It's an example of the Magic Roundabout done in the game City Skylines, which is one of my favorite games. I love City Skylines. And so, but yeah, so I make that joke every time because I'm like, I know you guys are shocked to find out that one of my favorite games is making streets and roads as a driving instructor. So, but yeah, yep. All right. Well, I think we have run out of time. So
as it does.
We have to put Brent to bed. Brent needs to go to bed. So time for Brent to head to bed. So good night, Brent. It was good chatting with you. And we will see you all plausibly next week. We'll see what happens. We don't know how things are going. We'll wait until Troy comes back from his trek to the great east,
To the moon.
to the great moonly east.
Mm-hmm.
And until then, guys, thank you for joining us.
Mm-hmm.
I've been Guy,
I've been Troy.
and this is Geek Tank.